let's go ahead and clear up shop here a little bit. Make sure everything's in its proper place, and then we can get to this intro. I messed up my settings somehow. I don't know how I did it, so now I'm gonna have to just I'm just gonna have to redo everything from scratch after this video. It'll work out. It will all work out. Anyway, good afternoon, good morning, good evening. This is DSP News, the unreliable ones. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the newsroom and welcome to the Goutopia News Network. Your unreliable source, your unreliable source for DSP News. This is the Snort Report brought to you by SnortBucks Coffee Company, best beverage company. Let's go. Okay, so what are we talking about today? Well, that should be, or what we should be going over, I should say, should be the continuation of what we talked about yesterday as it pertains to DSP, T. Carter, and DSP's foray into the FGC, which is something I've spoken about quite a bit over the years, to be honest with you, because of this scumbag take DSP had all these years ago. And I haven't been able to find the clip. It's in an old SnortBucks video for sure, and I know I had the original clip at one time or another. I may have even put it in a video a while ago, where DSP says something along the lines that if T. Carter had lived, DSP would have been one of the best fighting game Super Turbo players in the country. And that always rubbed me wrong. That just sounds, it came across as just wrong. It came across as wrong. Anyway, I'm still looking for it. Maybe I'll get lucky. We'll find it and it'll make it into the video. If not, know that I'm still looking for it. But that always rubbed me wrong. And now I think about it, is it in the original T. Carter video he did, the one that he monetized and he got criticized for, when they were talking about the school shooting and shit? I wonder if it's in that video now I think about it. But I feel like it's not that old. Anyway, I'll have to look, and I'm sure I'll find it. I'm confident enough, I have enough confidence in myself that I think I'll find it. In any case, that's what we're going to be speaking on. So let's go ahead and move, let's go ahead and slip into something a little bit more comfortable. And let's move into one of my favorite segments, hopefully one of your favorite segments. Ladies and gentlemen, excuse me, welcome to my TED Talk. So, T. Carter, DSP, and the FGC. Oh boy, I gotta tell you. The amount of lies that DSP has spoken about on that bullshit is, and skinwalking. That's really what that's where I've kind of boiled down. I've boiled this all down to. I've reduced it down to over the years. Is that DSP was trying to skinwalk as T. He basically wanted this. T died. Everybody said, "Oh, it's a shame," the wasted potential, because T was murdered. All that wasted potential, this, that, and the third. And DSP thought, "Oh, I have just as much talent as T did. I'm just gonna go ahead and just slide right into that position right there, and I'm gonna be the man." And he failed miserably, as with everything that DSP does. But truth be told, he never gave a fuck about T. T was a stepping stone. He saw what T had. He saw the adulation, the respect, the appreciation that the Connecticut crew had for T, and DSP thought, "What the fuck's that Negro need all that shit for? I deserve that." You know what I'm saying? I have more than T. I have more talent. I have more potential. I just have more in life than him. Why is he getting all that credit? Why is he getting all that respectability? And I think that's what it came down to. And when T died, he thought, "Now I get my shot." Because he was not talented, smart enough, or skilled enough to beat T when he was alive. Now he's dead, he can go ahead and have his way with it. Just like how DSP likes to talk about outliving these other, or outlasting, if you will. Not say he's outlasted anything, but how he likes to say he outlasted all these other big content creators and streamers who went on and retired, or just went on to bigger and better things outside of streaming and YouTube, and DSP loves to harp about that bullshit. I think T is just another example of that. I think T is probably one of the first examples of that. Now, I know most of you may have not seen it in that light. And you don't have to, you don't have to agree with me. Just, sorry, sorry about this. Got this new vanilla bean and shit. This is like it's vanilla bean and fucking mochi. Fucking cappuccino flavor and shit. Had that shit imported or whatnot. It's fantastic, but it coats the whole inside of your mouth. which, I mean, that's what milk is supposed to do, obviously. But it does it a little bit more than usual. So if you hear me kind of like taking a gulp or something, that's the reason why. Maybe I just shouldn't be doing, drinking cappuccino as I'm doing my news report and whatever. But I do what I want. But in any case, that's what that is. So my apologies in advance. But I think that's what it is. I think that's one of the earliest examples of DSP outlasting his competition, somebody that he couldn't compete against. I really think that's what it comes down to. He could never beat, as long as T was alive, DSP looked at as he'd never get a shot. He would never be looked at as the man. It would always be T. Would be and keep in mind, T was younger than DSP. Just like Justin Wong was younger than DSP. Sanford Kelly, a lot of those guys. DSP was older than some of these dudes. T was in his way. And as long as T lived, DSP was never gonna get his opportunity. And that's where that whole meme comes from. That it was DSP who actually killed T and whatnot. He was the one that actually shot him in the night and all that bullshit. That's where that meme comes from, kind of, sort of. But I do honestly believe, out of that meme, I think there is some truth to it. In that, as long as T was alive, as long as T drew breath, DSP knew he was never gonna be the man. He would never have any of that. If T had lived, do you think DSP would have made it as far as he did in 2005? Maybe. If T Carter wasn't playing Super Turbo that year, if he was choosing to play something else. But even then, it wouldn't have mattered, because whatever T would have placed at, and whatever game he would have placed in, whatever game that T decided to play that year, and wherever his placement in set game would be, especially if it was within the top 8, let alone top 10, it would still get the adulation, and DSP would always just play second fiddle, basically. So in a morbid sort of way, and it sounds really bad, and it is really bad and whatnot, but in a morbid sort of way, DSP may look at it as T dying was probably one of the best things that happened to him. Because according to DSP, wasn't for T, especially if it wasn't for T dying, DSP would have never have launched, air quotes, launched his FGC career. Now, a lot of people are not gonna like what I just said or agree with it, and I get it, man. You know what I'm saying? I understand. So, you know what I'm saying? You feel the need to log off, you feel the need to unsubscribe, do what you gotta do. But honestly, though, that's what I think. I honestly think that. I really do. And the more and more that DSP likes to have these struggle crying sessions and shit, in memory of T or reminiscing about him, the more and more he looks and he sounds like someone who is not genuine whatsoever, and he looked at T as an obstacle he couldn't beat. And I'm not saying that DSP wished death upon T. I'm not saying that. I wouldn't put that past DSP, but I'm not saying that's what that is. You know what I'm saying? Because let's be honest, DSP just looked at T as just another Negro anyway. But I think what it was is once T was gone, I think DSP was relieved. So let's look at it this way. And if we come back to it at the end of this video, if I remember to, we'll talk about it. So I'm going to ask you guys a direct question. When T passed away, did DSP feel relief or regret? Relief that the one person that he felt that was standing in his way is now gone, and now he can go ahead and actually run with the baton, and he's the young Turk. He was the best coming out of Connecticut, this, that, and the third. He was trying to put Connecticut on the map and on his back and all that bullshit. Did he feel relief that the one person that he knew he couldn't beat was out of the way, even though he couldn't beat John, couldn't beat Howard, he could beat semantics. Was he relieved that happened? Or did he actually feel regret that T died too soon before DSP could get all the knowledge and get everything he could out of T? Utilitarianism. Couldn't use him for every little drop of knowledge and information or whatever he could get out of T, and creativity and whatever else before he passed away. Which one do you guys think? Like I said, if I remember, I'll ask you again at the end of the broadcast. In any case, thank you for coming to my TED Talk. And let's go ahead and move on to what is essentially the meat and potatoes of all this. This isn't a chess game, but I think we're having a discussion, right? So, you know what I'm saying? First couple of rounds of SnortBucks is on me, as always. as always, and whatnot. And let's see here.
Guys, we're at 90.
Shut your dumb ass up. And look at that shit. Like, now I think about it, look at this grin. This grin of greed that's on his face. That shit's always been unsettling to me. Like, I mean, don't get me wrong, I joke about it just like I'm sure most detractors do, but there's always been something unsettling about it. It really is, man. That's something incredibly unsettling about this shit. Anywho, anyway, ladies and gentlemen, we're here with Raw Phil. Big ups to Raw Phil and whatnot. And let's see what the title that Diggs, big ups to Diggs, by the way, too, that Diggs put out here on this. All right, Darksydephil speaks on T. Carter and his start in the FGC. This is from March 5th of 2025, year of the snake and whatnot, as you guys all know. And let's see here. Let's go ahead and get this party started.
Guys, we're at $96 of support. We got about 15 minutes left on the stream. So if you want to help me hit my goal and get us closer to our very fun Five Nights at Freddy's torture marathon next week, please support the stream. I mean, we are such a big chunk towards the goal. Let's not let it slip by and slip through our fingers tonight. Okay?
That's another thing, too. What's the urgency? Like, isn't that the whole reason why we gave up on the concept of a streak and whatnot? And we just set goals, and whenever we hit those goals, to get into the milestones, which are DSP Cries It after every 10, and then with every 50 and 100, a marathon, special event, whatever fucking dent convention he's doing. What's the urgency? It's no different than the vest streak. He just gave it a different name. It's no different than any streak, really. It doesn't have to be the vest streak. But he just gave it a different name. In that subtlety, which isn't subtle, he thinks he can put more pressure on them, and they'll be less resistant to it. At least that's my theory, of course. I have, make of that what you will.
Neano Live, we talked about this, about possibly having this camera look at my joystick to have me show my inputs when I play fighting games.
I don't know if he's ever actually done that since then and whatnot, because obviously the I'll name the segment later that you guys heard yesterday was recorded a while ago. It's been a minute. It's been a hot ass minute. So it is what it is. But I don't know if he's ever done that. And truth be told, I don't think he would. Now he might have, and I may be wrong, but I wouldn't think he would, because then it exposes one of the crutches that he has as it pertains to the FGC and as it pertains to current fighting games, about it doesn't require execution. It's easy mode, you know what I'm saying, dumb shit, whatever. But I think if you actually saw his hands, you saw the reaction time or the lack thereof, and the lack of reflexes, and the fact that he's not fully executing stuff the way he says he does, or he's not pressing the button when he says he is. I think it would expose him. I think it's the reason why he never did it. I honestly think he never did it, because if he really wanted to prove that it's the game's fault, he would have no problem doing so. And he won't. And on top of that, I want you to think about this. He made some type of claim about it being on his lap. He didn't want it there, whatever, as if his fucking small ass penne means anything to anybody. But reality is, why don't he just put the joystick on the table? You know what I'm saying? Like on the desk or whatever that he has that's platforming his keyboard and mouse. Why don't he just put the keyboard, or not keyboard, why don't he just put his joystick there and just play on that? See, he never tells you that. And he can't say that it's not stable enough. Why not? What makes it such an unreliable platform to do so? It makes you think. I don't think he'll ever do it. I don't think he's man enough to do it. It would just expose him. But I could be wrong. Wouldn't be the first.
The problem is, if I do that, I don't have a face cam.
Because no one needs to see your face. That doesn't mean anything anyway. If anything, that's just putting you at a further deficit. That literally means nothing.
This is currently my face cam too.
And here, let me help his dumbass out, which I'm accused of doing quite a bit. But let's help his dumbass out a bit. Go ahead and just get yourself a virtual overlay, like Dark Dave Mears has one and whatnot, and then that right there will track your button presses. But then that opens a Pandora's box to a whole bunch of other excuses on, oh, well, it's not tracking my button presses properly, or my motions, or whatever. Oh, it's delayed by 2 milliseconds or whatever the fuck, and it's not catching it. He'll come up with all kinds of excuses and reasons for it. But yet, I've seen Dark Dave Mears do it, or I've seen Raw Phil do it, And what's the problem they've had? I've seen other FGC guys or just guys who are fighting game enthusiasts do it, and they haven't had a problem with it. I've seen speedrunners do it and whatnot with whatever game they're playing, Nintendo, Super Nintendo, 64, whatever. I've seen it and it tracks their button presses just fine. But see, DSP is unique though. He's always has to be somehow different and somehow is exempt from doing what other people do. Yet again, it's all about exposing himself. And he knows it. He knows deep down he's a fucking fraud because he always was and he always will be. And anything that could somehow prove that he is a fraud or prove that he isn't, he won't do it. It's a gamble. It's a gamble. And he knows it. And it's a gamble that he's going to lose. And as a degenerate gambler, it kind of makes sense why he's not willing to do it.
So do you just want to stare at inputs the whole stream? Or do you actually want to see me react?
But you don't react to anything. He just looks dead fish, stone face at the thing, and that's it. And then all the ranting that he does after he loses. That doesn't prove anything. It doesn't provide any value to nothing. You know what I mean? And it just shows you how egotistical he is because he believes that he needs to be on screen at every given time so people know who he is. I know shit gameplay when I see it, so that doesn't mean anything. And he loses the majority of the time anyway. That's why he's always ducking people. That's why he sits his ass in casuals all the time.
Right now, it seems like people are more apt to care about reacting. Not many people who actually watch me do fighting games are apt at the technical aspects of it.
And see, that right there is his excuse. Oh, no one really cares about seeing whether none of them care for me to prove that the claims that I make about this game being bad or rollback netcode is bad or whatever. They just want to see me react. But he never wants to prove nothing. Isn't that funny? He's got a perfect Apple opportunity to prove if the rollback is actually bad or not, but he won't do it. And why wouldn't he? Hasn't he been trying to tell the FGC for a while that your game is shit, your netcode is shit, and now he has actual proof to do it? Or he's given an example. He's given a chance to prove what he's saying is true, and he won't do it. Why is he cowarding? That's basically what the point I'm trying to make. Why is he cowarding from something that could literally, if it's true what he's saying, could prove his point? Well, I'll tell you why. One, his own connection. You know what I'm saying? His own internet, which is a deficit. He knows he's running at a deficit. So that's a problem. On top of that, he just doesn't have the reflexes and the execution. In the story, his hardware in some way, shape, or form might be compromised. You don't want to admit to that. I could literally run the gambit of all the problems that this guy has on his side that he'll never want to address. It's easier just to coast along than actually prove a point. It's easier just to go ahead and throw out accusations, right, into the ether. And knowing that anybody of real respectability will never answer him back, it's easier to live that way than actually have to get into a discussion and prove some shit. Something about.
To see my inputs and judge them. Most people who want to see it are dumbass trolls who think they know anything and don't, but they'll try to microanalyze it, and then they'll actually act like they know something, even though they don't.
And yet he doesn't want to prove anything though. So if I'm so uneducated, right, then enlighten me, right? Go ahead. But he won't do it because he can't. He can't do it. That's the thing. He can't do it because deep down he knows people like myself and others who have obviously talked about this. They know that we're right. He knows deep down that for sure. He knows that he's slower. His reflexes aren't there. His reactions aren't there. When DSP is playing a fighting game, he perceives what should happen, not what's actually happening. And that's his problem. That's legitimately his whole issue. It's not only has his body given up on him, but mentally he's deluded, or I don't want to say it, it's not digressed. He's what's the word I'm looking for? I don't want to say dissolved. Digressed, I guess. He's fallen, I guess. Let's go with another term. He's fallen behind. Basically. He's fallen behind. He can't keep up with the competition physically nor mentally. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, he doesn't have the dexterity, not to say that he ever did, but he doesn't have enough dexterity to be able to compete even on a casual level, really. He's just scraping by. And truth be told, if all of those different consoles or different platforms he's been on, and all of the wins and losses come up to the accumulation of what his overall score is, then that explains why he keeps jumping from platform to platform to try to keep above the 50% win rate. If that's how it works. If it doesn't work that way, right, then theoretically what I'm saying is right either which way. Because if it is correct that on all the platforms that he's played, when you look at his Capcom ID, it's the accumulation of all three of those platforms, then it literally shows how stifled he is as a player. If it's not, and each platform has its own individual performance, and that's what his percentages is, it still proves my point, because he performs consistently enough on each and every platform to prove that he's literally hit his cap, and he'll never be able to break past it. So either way, I win. in an egotistical sort of way on my part. Either way, I still win. He's still capped no matter what. And truth be told, this shows you how stupid he is. Him going to all those different platforms and getting the exact same result, not elevating with each platform he went on, only proves it. It only proves that he's already hit his mental cap, well, his physical and mental cap, and he can't elevate above it or past it. Which also goes to show that all of those tournament level players or adjacent players who are trying to get themselves to tournament level, it's the reason why they body him so easily. Like, it's not necessarily that they just outperform him, but they can outthink him, right? And because DSP doesn't think, and he's completely about reactions, he's completely about repetition, he is a flowchart player, he is a pattern player, just like LTG is, it's the reason why that he can't grow past it. You know what I mean? On top of the fact that he doesn't even understand most of the stuff that he's doing. He's emulating what he saw someone else do, and he saw that it works. He just doesn't, but he can't explain to you why it works. He can't explain to you why it works in this situation, but it doesn't work in this one. He just expects it to work when he does it. Something about it.
But, I don't really think it would serve much of a purpose. If I had 3 cameras, so we could do a face cam.
And now we need more cameras to figure out, to go ahead and get the problem done. Think about that for a minute. Like I said, you could do the overlay. Your face is a non-factor in any of this bullshit. You have so many complaints about rollback netcode and yada, 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 that you just going ahead and having your camera pointed down to the actual joystick could prove all that. Instead, he just pushes the goalpost back, which is what he accuses detractors, trolls, haters, and critics of. Now he's going to push the goalpost back and say he needs a third camera, even though he can't even get the 2 cameras that he's using now to work properly more often than not. Now he wants to add a third camera there. For what? And what does that do? Think about how much real estate his fucking bloated ass fucking alcoholic face already takes up on the screen. Now he wants to put a hand cam there too. So how much real estate is there going to actually be for the game? That's funny, because didn't he accuse LTG for cluttering up his streaming overlay and whatever? Like he was using all this unnecessary real estate and this, that, and the third, and he thought that his overlay or his loadout, if you will, looked cluttered and whatnot compared to his. Think about it. Like, really think about what narrative he's trying to get off.
I'm here and the joystick, yes, but I'm already having issues just having 2 cameras work. So I don't think that the 3 cameras is really a good idea.
But no one's asking for a third camera. He literally put the third camera in there as if someone else had recommended that to him. That's crazy. That's so crazy. Oh my God. Like peak pignosis. Holy shit.
Just being honest. There was a question over here about tournaments, but I missed it. What's Kat currently playing? She's been playing Zoo Simulators. She played Zoo Tycoon, and now I think she's playing the other one, which is like Planet Zoo. She's been trying to get into like different simulator games that are like chill fun, because she really likes animals. So she's trying to do stuff like that right now.
That's funny, because then the Discord leaks like hint that there's more than one animal in the house. Semantic. I got to be honest with you. I'm starting to lean towards the fact that Kat's not even playing games anymore, to be honest with you. Remember, the reason why he was going to take her PC over buying a new one is because she wasn't using it anymore. Matter of fact, she wasn't allegedly not even using that room anymore. They were storing stuff in there because the Nook allegedly was full of junk and whatever, and they couldn't figure out a way to get everything downstairs and get it into the car to throw it all out. Right. But keep in mind, though, too, the only reason why he started saying that is because the uh, the suspicion that's been out there for a long ass time, to be honest with you, that she sleeps in that room was really starting to boil over, and he was starting to get more and more pissed off at it. So that's when he had to come up with that excuse that, oh, we filled that room with a bunch of junk and whatever, and that's why her computer is available to be used, because we don't use that room for anything. Keep that in mind.
Really nothing else out that interests her. Don't be Koala.
But I honestly think, I don't even know if she even really plays games anymore, to be honest.
Asked your first fighting game tournament back in the day. What got me into it? Actually, I'll try to abridge the story. I've told this story before at length, but it's a long story.
It's not just that. It's the fact that he's changed aspects of that story. And he doesn't remember what was the most recent change that he made since the last time he said it. That's really what it comes down to. Because out of the 3 or 4 times that I've heard it, he was consistent the first 2 times, and then he started muddying the waters the last few times that I remember.
Okay. Oh, did I unmute the mic? Yes, I did. Okay. Welcome back, everyone, to Hate Live. And this is segment 2 back in the day. And this is pretty much going to be probably the most real back in the day I've ever done, because it's really going to be just talking from the heart about my very personal experiences with competitive Street Fighter, my origins in that, the person who got me into it, the person who quite honestly kind of was my mentor when it comes to having that competitive edge in fighting games. And his name was Telvance Carter, but he went by T. And he lived in the Bridgeport, Connecticut area at a time in my life when I also lived in Bridgeport, Connecticut, but I lived on the other side of town. T, unfortunately, was not lucky. He lived in a family with many different brothers and sisters, a home that really was not exactly high income, you know what I mean? And he lived on a very, very bad part of town. And because of that, frequently found himself walking to bus stops, walking here, walking there. Never ended up getting enough money for a car. Even his mom barely could drive anywhere. When she did drive, it was to work and back. And, you know, it was a rough life for him, really. And we met at my local arcade. Local arcade originally was called Crazy Eights Arcade. Later on, it changed, had like a shift in management, and ended up being called What's Your Game? And it was kind of a weird location because it was kind of between the bad area and the good area of Bridgeport, Connecticut. So it was kind of like people from all walks of life would walk in there and mingle. You'd have people who, like, I swear, would come in, I'm not even kidding, like, it was so ridiculous. Suit and tie, straight out of their office job, they'd walk in, oh, I'm here to play the Pac-Man. And then you would have, you know, the teenagers, the kids, the little kids. I was one of the littler kids at the time. You'd have, you know, the inner city youth. You'd have the middle class people. People from every race, creed, authority would walk into that place. And when you did, you were equal because you were all a competitor. And that was one of the most unique things about the arcade competitive scene that has been lost to this day, is that it was just a cornucopia of culture. I met so many people through the arcade scene that I never would have met outside of that in any other circle of my life. Pretty crazy, right? And it's funny because, you know, T, again, I never would have met him, ever. Where would I have met him if it weren't for the arcade? And really, in an arcade, everyone's equal. Everyone has the same quarter. Everyone puts the quarter up, waits their turn, gets up, plays the game. And when you play, it's not about what you look like. It's not about what you dress like. It's not about how you sound. It's not about what race, what creed, what religion, any of that shit. It's about your game. Your game speaks volumes about you, right? And the amount of dedication and the amount of practice that you put in. And in my local arcade scene, basically when I was starting to become a younger teenager, I'd say probably around 15, 16 years old, there was myself and there was T. Now, there were other people who played the games as well, and they were very good. But it always seemed when it came to the competitive aspect of Street Fighter in particular, because don't get me wrong, there were other games. There was Killer Instinct, there was Mortal Kombat. But when it came to Street Fighter, it was always myself on one side and T on the other. And I like to say this a lot. I used to say this. He was the Ryu, and I was Ken. Because T, I'll be honest, he had the natural talent. There's a difference between someone who sits there and practices and practices and studies and works and really, strives towards their goal and eventually gets it. And then there's those people who I swear, I don't know if they're savants, where they just, like that, they get it. T was one of those people. He could take a fighting game, a particular Street Fighter game, and he could, within 2 weeks, find the most ridiculous strategy that's so good in the game. Sometimes it would even be with a character that's like not a popular character. Like I remember, for example, just an example, because we played many fighting games over the years, but one of the ones that we were very competitive was Marvel vs. Capcom Part 1. And he played Mega Man. Now, not a lot of people played Mega Man in that game, because he was small, he's slow, he's more of a keep-away character, he's limited in what he can do. Within 2 weeks, T knew, like, amazing shit with him. No one could touch him. Seriously, like, no one in the arcade could touch him. And we're all playing, like, how does he learn this shit? And this was, keep in mind, this was before the time of YouTube, before the time of facts and tutorials that were 100% correct on the top tier strategies for a game. Back then, yeah, there were like internet message boards and people who would discuss, but no one knew what top tier strategies were. I remember for Marvel vs. Capcom 1, Jay Snyder, Visant, he's known in the Street Fighter community as Visant, and he's still up there, he's still well known. During this time period, was posting on forums that Zangief and Jin were the two best characters in Marvel vs. Capcom 1. Now, anyone who played the game competitively knew they're actually two of the worst characters in the whole game, but that's how it was back then. People would win one tournament, post up about it, and everyone would think it was Bible truth. Oh my god. But he had this uncanny knack, without any help from anyone, of finding the shit that was like the most top tier shit in a video game. I don't know how the fuck he did it, but he just did it. I remember in Street Fighter 3, and I'm not talking Third Strike, but I think it was Part 1. He went off and he figured out that there was an incredibly easy infinite with Ibuki that does like insane amounts of damage, causes dizzy. It's a touch of death basically. And after that, no one could ever beat him again, because if he ever get that one hit in, he would win the whole game. It was the most broken strategy ever, I think, in a fighting game. It was so ridiculous. And I always remember he had really good reaction times as well. He had really good muscle memory. He would be the guy that every time you jump at him, he's going to fucking dragon punch you. Not once will you jump at him and you will not get a dragon punch to the ball sack. That's how good he was, okay? And I remember that, at that point in my life, being 15, 16 years old, I was playing for fun. Now, T was a year older than me, so he was maybe 16, 17 at the time. And I remember that at one point, he just felt, he had this feeling, this inkling, that just playing in the local arcade wasn't good enough for him anymore. Because let's face it, he was the top of the food chain. He knew he was better than everyone else in the arcade. Although, occasionally I would beat him or someone else would beat him. Most of the time he would be dominating whenever he was there. And he knew that he needed new blood and he wanted to, he craved it. He had that, what do they call that? The fighter spirit, the eye of the tiger. It wasn't enough for him to be the best at his local arcade. He wanted to move on and have more challenges in his competitive, whatever you call it. I really wasn't of that mindset at that point in my life. I was perfectly happy to go to the arcade on a Friday night, play for several hours, have fun, and that was it for me, And then I remember one year, T was gone for about a long weekend. He told me he was going to go to this tournament and that he wasn't going to be around that weekend. I was kind of bummed because I was like, man, well, I'm not going to this tournament. It means that you're not going to be here. So I'm going to basically be beating up on all the locals here. And there's not going to be, a lot of amazing challenge for me in these games. And I remember he came back from that tournament. And my God, he was like a changed person. He was like, it was like he saw the meaning of life. You know what I mean? Like he saw some kind of an amazing ultimate truth and that he was enlightened. Because he came back and he's like, Phil, he's like, you don't even know. You got to go to a tournament with me. He's like, yeah, I met so many people. I had so much fun. I learned so much. And wait till I tell you about this tournament. So this tournament actually took place around the time when, if I'm remembering correctly, everyone was playing games like X-Men versus Street Fighter, stuff like that. And he had gone to play in that. But at this tournament, in the Midwest. It was actually, of all things, the Midwest Championships. That's right. It's the tournament that I ended up going to years and years later and attending many times. But at the time, he had gone to the Midwest Championships, which was held at Nickel City, just outside of Chicago, run by that's right, the world famous Jason Wilson, who ended up years later running Midwest Championships, running the SBO qualifiers that I attended in the Midwest. He ran the Midwest Championships back then. And I remember him coming back and saying, I met so many people. I had so much fun. And wait till you hear this. Jason Wilson got his hands on a beta copy. It wasn't the finished game, but a beta version of Street Fighter Alpha 3 that wasn't out in arcades yet. And they had a tournament, an on-the-spot tournament, like a day one tournament. And T won the tournament, which like blew everyone away. Like, how could he win a day one tournament? And keep in mind, probe level players go to Midwest Championships. We're talking the big names of the time. And this was before the era of Justin Wong and Eddie Lee. This is more like the West Coast dudes. Like, you want to talk about the OGs like Alex Valle and Mike Watson. This was their prime time when they were the big top names in the business. And I don't know if they were there that particular year, but I do know that T somehow managed to win this day one beta tournament of Street Fighter Alpha. And he told me all about it. He had played with Vega, and I mean the Spanish Ninja, and he had done all this stuff. And it was just like an amazing story to me. And it did, it inspired me. And I was like, wow, if there ever are tournaments in this area, I'd like to do them. But, at that point, I never thought that I would save up money to go travel on a plane and fly out somewhere to play in a tournament. To me, that was like light years ahead. Like nothing that I would even think of doing, right? So then, the local malls started having tournaments, and I started attending them, and T started attending them too. But for whatever reason, this was really weird. Really, really weird, right? T didn't do so well in those tournaments, and I don't know why. I don't know if he was more at home at the local arcade than at the mall, or he just didn't like something about the mall setting. But I do know that whenever he would play at the local mall arcade, that usually I would do better than him. And he actually, for a while, it was really weird, kind of stopped playing. And what I mean is that I really didn't see him around that much. And then I remember there was this one tournament in particular. That happened where it was the big thing. Oh my God, did you guys hear? Players from New York are coming. Players from New York City. We're talking the big leagues, people who enter the majors, players who are well known as for being good are coming to our tournament in Connecticut because they want to face competition outside of New York. And I'll tell you, for a tournament that was not a major tournament, this was unheard of. Locals from another area are coming to this area to enter their local tournament. Like, it was unprecedented. So these guys, it turns out, ended up being Josh Wigfall and Mike, and I forget it. I think it was Mike. God, I forget his last name because we always called him something for short. It was Mike D. We called him, I think. And so they show up, and they're doing stuff in Marvel vs. Capcom 1 that none of us have ever fucking seen. We're looking at it like, whoa, like this is good stuff. This is stuff with Wolverine, crazy ass long ass 70-80% combos, crazy ass lockdown strategies with Strider. And we're just blown away. And I remember T kind of saw it, and he was a little disappointed because he wished, I guess, that he had come up with that stuff first. And he didn't do too well in that tournament. And I remember I did okay. I think I made top 5. I even made like 3rd place. But I did lose to the New York players. I lost to Josh Wigfall in particular. But after the match, he shook my hand. Josh Wigfall's always been one of those stand-up guys in the Street Fighter community. And don't let anyone ever tell you different. If they say the name Josh Wigfall and they say he's a jerk, they're full of shit. They did something stupid, and he's mad at them, or he treated them bad because of that. He's like one of the most honorable people I've ever met in my life. And he was such a nice guy, and so nice about the fact that he came to Connecticut, and he was better than all of us, right? But at the end of the day, he shook all of our hands after our match. He said, that was a really good match. It was close, good stuff. I want to play you again after the tournament's over. And I was like, what a great guy, right? So after the tournament, I remember, in particular, T had lost and was, he was disappointed, but it wasn't like he was crushed or anything. but he just wanted to go do other stuff. And he had his gaming group of friends, and then he kind of had another group of friends on the side as well. It was like he had two different groups of friends, and we didn't always interact. And I remember that day he was so kind of annoyed at what had happened at the tournament that he wanted to go hang out with his other group of friends. And so he said, Phil, do you want to come hang out with us? And I wasn't really too friendly with them, and I said, nah, it's cool, I'll go home. I played in the tournament, did all right. I'll go home and I'll see you at the arcade this weekend, or whatever it was. We shot the shit, And I thought nothing of it whatsoever. And at the time, I actually worked at the mall. I actually worked at the same mall where this arcade was in. Remember I've said in the past, I had this mall job where I tossed salad and pumped yogurt at a health food store. Yeah, this was that job, okay? And so during this time period, I worked there, and I worked there, usually it was weekends because I was still in high school, right? So I remember coming into work one day. Oh, by the way, one thing I want to show you. T gave me this. In fact, T gave me the entire... I had like one or two of these. I think I had Blanca, and I may have had like Blanca and Honda, and that was it. These were little keychains, Street Fighter keychains, that were actually prizes, ticket prizes at our local arcade for winning tickets. And T had actually won so many tickets one day that he went and he got like a ton of these, and he gave them out. He gave me a whole set. So I have a whole set of the original 8 World Warriors. This is branded 1992, officially branded Capcom from Street Fighter 2, the keychain set. I have the whole set, and they're in like mint condition. Pretty crazy, but I thought I would show that as a cool little knick-knack for you. And so I worked in the mall. I remember this one day. Now, this was like a couple days after this tournament that had taken place. And I walk in, and as I'm walking in, another local player from the area who I knew, I wasn't super friendly with him or anything, but I knew him. We had been competitive in the game. Walked up to me, and his face was so sad. His eyes were full of tears. And I looked at this guy, and I was like, oh my God, what's happening? And he grabbed me by my shoulders like this, and he like ringed me. He said, did you hear? And I said, hear what? He says, did you hear? No. What the hell are you talking about? Here I am. I'm in my bright neon green work shirt, right? I'm going to walk to work to punch in. I don't know what the hell's going on. I'm thinking I might be late for work. I don't know what's going on with this guy. He's hysterical. And he goes, T died. I said, what? You're pulling my chain, man. You're full of shit. You don't know what the hell you're talking about. And he pulled me aside and kind of slammed me against the wall to let me know that it was serious. He was like, no, dude, T died. And I remember at the time, I was in shock. It was like, what? And at that point, that was the first person who I ever knew in my life that had passed away. And I was only 17 years old. And it was like, what? Like, it would not click in my head. Like, what is the rational reaction when you find out that someone passed away that's your friend? And it's like pain, anger, sadness, crying. I'll tell you right now, I don't remember how the rest of the conversation went. I do not remember. I don't. I don't remember. I just remember walking into my job, and my boss was there, and he looked at me and he says, you don't look right. What's wrong? I said, I just found out my friend died. And he looked at me, he's like, wow, I'm so sorry to hear that. Are you okay? And I was like, I guess so. And I remember working for about maybe 3 or 4 hours that day, and I don't know where my head was. I was just not myself. And then I remember at one point, it was like break, and I had to use the bathroom. And I went into the bathroom, and I went to the stall, and then it hit me. And I was like, wow, he's dead. And I cried. And that was really the first stage of accepting it. But there was always a piece of me in my head that didn't want to. A piece of me that was like, no, this didn't happen, And it was funny because that was kind of my reaction to everything. Like, I went to my parents and I told them, and they were like, are you kidding me? What happened? And I was like, I don't know the full story yet. I heard that he was shot, and I don't know. And it just kind of, I don't remember. I'm serious. Like, I swear to God, my subconscious has blocked it out. I don't really remember much about that time period of my life. I don't remember if I went to the arcade or not anymore at that point. I know eventually I went back, but I don't know at what point, you know, if it affected at all what I was doing. I do remember going to the wake, and I remember the wake was the most fucking weird thing I've ever done in my life, because he did not look like himself. He looked weird. He looked like a mannequin to me, and I'm staring at him, and I'm just like, what is going on? Like, what the fuck is going on? This is so unbelievable. You know, things were going so well. You know, a vibrant life, someone who was a savant at video games, and really, let's take a look at what has happened to video games since 1999 when T passed away. Sure, in the years 2000, 2001, 2002, there was a lot of stagnation. But then with this reinvigoration that happened with Street Fighter 4, I guarantee you if T were still alive, he would have been one of those savants. Day one, he would have figured out all the top tier shit. He would have been dominating everyone with Sagat from day one. He would have been winning tournaments. He would have been going around, and just to see, I still don't know what to say about it. I don't. I'm just so flabbergasted at what happened. So now I'm going to tell you guys what happened, okay? Because if this isn't the most just vile story of people who just don't need to exist, people with absolutely no aim or drive or purpose to their life, I don't know what is. You're not going to believe the story. So here's the story. Wait till you hear this. So it was either that day when we were at that tournament at the mall that T had not done too well in, and he had gone to hang out with his other friends, or the day after. That was never cleared up what day it was. But like I told you, T lived in a bad neighborhood. He couldn't afford to live in a good place. And unfortunately, what would happen a lot of the times is that people would drop him off a few blocks from his house, because quite honestly, and this is no exaggeration, he was in one of the worst places to live in Bridgeport, Connecticut. The most crime, drug dealings, shootings, all of that stuff. And he just couldn't move out, because that's where his family lived. He had to live where his mom could afford, right? So people would not even drive up to his house. I was one of the few people, when I finally could drive when I was 16, I was willing to drive up to his house, at least in the daylight. But I knew that I had to get the fuck out of there as soon as I dropped him off, because that was a horrible area, okay? So apparently, here's what happened. Apparently what happened was he had gotten dropped off a few blocks away from his house. Now, what I'm telling you are facts based off the police report that I read the other night. Because for years, as I said, I lived in denial. I didn't want to know the circumstances around it. It was too emotional for me. And finally, the other night, I manned up and I looked up the police report. And now I know exactly what happened. Here's what happened. He's walking home, only a few blocks away. He wasn't doing anything wrong. He wasn't looking for trouble, right? He never had. He wasn't that kind of person. So he's walking home, and there's another car coming from the opposite direction, coming up his street. And the car stops. There's 3 youths inside the car. One of the youths says that he has to piss. Stop the car. I have to piss right now. Now, let me ask you something. What kind of person, what state is a person that they have to piss so bad they can't wait to get to a toilet? So it's quite obvious he was either intoxicated, inebriated, whatever it was, okay? He gets out of the car, literally walks to the sidewalk, and begins to piss off of the sidewalk, okay? Now, T doesn't know what the hell's going on. This guy's facing, you know, a building or whatever, minding his own business. He's walking down the street. The guy hears him, turns to him, gets startled, pulls out a gun, fires 4 fucking shots. Not 1, not 2, 4 shots into T's chest. So it wasn't just boom, oh shit, run away. It was intentional. Boom, 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 boom. Runs away with his dick hanging out, jumps back into the car, tells his 2 friends. His friends are like, what the fuck just happened? He goes, I just shot some kid, let's go. Kids drive off, and that's it. Luckily, people heard it. And I have to say this, luckily people fucking reported it, because I hate to say it, there's a big problem in the United States of people who do not report this kind of stuff. Reported it, the cops found them, all right, arrested them immediately, found the gun, found everything. And apparently in the heat of the moment in the arrest, okay, they didn't read the guy his Miranda rights. This is going to come into play, so let me give you the whole story, okay? They didn't read the guy his Miranda rights, but they did interrogate everyone. They found the gun, the bullets matched the gun, the piss was all over the street. Kind of hard to dispute it when your fucking DNA is all over the street because you pissed all over it. He blatantly told both people in the car that he had shot T, and they both squealed on him. Both of the people in the car told on him and said, yeah, as soon as he ran back in the car, he said that he shot him. We don't know what the fuck he did that for, right? Basically, there was literally a 3-ring fucking circus of evidence proving that this guy had done it. Proving it. Definitively that this guy had done it. So, he goes to trial. You know, he's in jail, goes to trial, blatant murder, because that's exactly what it is. It's murder. Although, I believe what it was, aggravated manslaughter. It's not blatant premeditated murder, because obviously he didn't even know who T was, so it can't be that highest murder charge. It was the one that gives you, like, 50 to life or whatever, because you just killed someone with no reason. So, goes to trial. What's the guy's defense? They didn't read me my Miranda rights. That's his defense. Because the guy had none. He literally murdered my friend for no fucking reason. He's that low of a person on the food chain. That low of a person in just the levels of life. You've got, the people up here who are like really nice people. They help people. Then you've got normal people. Then you've got people who just look out for themselves. Then you've got, people who are barely functional. Then you've got the people who are in the hospital that are vegetables. Then you've got the animals. Then you've got, the subhuman levels of life. You've got the mitochondria. You've got pond scum. And then you've got him. The guy that will literally murder you for fucking nothing. Okay? He has no defense. His defense is, they didn't read me my Miranda rights. Thank God. Thank God that there is at least some justice in the justice system. Even though they didn't read him his Miranda rights, which, yes, people can actually get off for it. Get off and not get charged or go to jail. Okay? He went to jail, and here's why. He got convicted of murder, 50 years to life. Ended up getting really convicted of a 50-year sentence. Why didn't the Miranda rights come into play? Because they had so much evidence against the guy, there was no way there could have been a shadow of a doubt. That's what they're basically saying. Okay, so you didn't read him his Miranda rights and he confessed. If we take away his confession and say he never confessed, both of his friends said he did it. His piss was at the scene. The bullets matched the gun. The DNAs and fingerprints on the gun. There is no defense for this guy. Zero. So regardless that he confessed, it didn't matter. It didn't matter that they didn't read him his Miranda rights. He went to jail. Get this. He's tried to appeal twice as recently as, I think it was 2009, trying to get out of jail saying, they didn't read me my Miranda rights. What lawyer would waste their time with this fucking guy? Really? You're not going to get him off. There was overwhelming evidence that he did it. Why would you know what I mean? Like, why would you even bother trying to appeal? But I guess that's our system. They're trying to be fair and balanced. Everyone gets a shot. Whatever certain year criteria it is, they could try to appeal. His only defense is that they didn't read him his Miranda rights. Now, by the way, let me say this. For those of you who don't know what Miranda rights are, because I just realized I have an international audience who may not know. In the United States of America, when you're being arrested, the police officer who is arresting you and taking you into custody must read you a statement stating that you have certain inalienable rights, that you have the ability, like, for example, you have the right to remain silent. You have the right to an attorney. If you can't afford one, an attorney will be provided for you. Basically, things that are provided for by the law. And if they don't read that to you, and you confess, for example, exactly what this guy did, later on he can say, well, my submission or my confession is inadmissible because they didn't read me my Miranda rights. And I'm not smart, so I didn't know that they could use that to incriminate me. So that's his whole case, but luckily there was enough evidence that he's been put away, and he's going to serve at least another 35 years in jail for what he did. Okay? But it really just, when this happened, I don't remember that like few months. It was a flurry that I lost. I couldn't tell you what happened during those months. I couldn't tell you my mindset. What I could tell you is that I didn't give up. Eventually, I had the courage to eventually play Street Fighter again. And I always remember every fucking time that I played Street Fighter, I thought, this is for T, you know? Because he would have wanted me to go to the next level, to go to the next step. He was the one who was trying to motivate me to leave Connecticut and go to tournaments. And eventually, not only did I start playing in and winning my local tournament scene in Connecticut, I ended up traveling. I went to ECC, which is the East Coast Championships. I went to B5. I went to other tournaments in the area. Later on, as the games became more prevalent, like Marvel vs. Capcom 2, I went to Philly. I went to Texas. I went to Chicago. I went to California. I went to Vegas. I traveled everywhere playing Street Fighter. And I'd never have done that, never, if it weren't for T. Because like I said, he was really the Ryu. He was the one with the natural talent. He was the one that inspired everyone else around him to become better. Because of his positive attitude, because of his drive, because of just his spirit. The smile on his face when he came back from these events was amazing. Okay? And now without further ado, what I'd like to do is shoot over to a different thing here and show you some pictures of T at the Midwest Championships that he attended that one year. Because that's actually where these pictures are from. These are from the very first time that Terrence attended the Midwest Championships I believe it was 1998. I'm not positive 100% on that. So obviously, you know, this is him with the camera in front of him, so that's not going to help you very much. But it's kind of funny. Take a look at the poster on the wall. X-Men Children of the Atom, you know, an arcade game from the time. Let me actually go all the way to the bottom here. It's not scrolling. There we go. All right. So there he is. A nice candid shot of him posing in the arcade. And the reason that he's posing in a fairly empty arcade, I'm going to explain in a moment, because of who he was friends with. Another local from Connecticut who became a legend because he was friends with pretty much all the top groupings in the Street Fighter community. There he is. There's T, and standing right directly to the left of him, his name is Scott Hovhannissian. Scott was a hell of a character, man. He's still around, but, I mean, he's semi-retired. He doesn't really care about Street Fighter anymore. Of all the people, you know, who were affected by T's loss, he was affected as one of the hardest because he was kind of like the mentor to T. He saw T's natural talent. He was the one who traveled with him to the Midwest Championships. Okay? And so Scott was kind of the, what do you call it, the barrier, the bridge between us and the competitive Street Fighter community. He was very good friends with Jason Wilson, he knew Seth Killian, he knew all the top dudes in Street Fighter who ran tournaments. And although Scott was never amazingly good on a competitive level, he's one of the funniest fucking guys you'll ever meet. I've already told the story about the East Coast Championships that I went with him, and he was staying in our room, and basically he was like making fun of me because I told everyone to be quiet because I wanted to go to sleep, and he was like, yeah, be quiet, I want to go to sleep. And then when we would finally, everyone would laugh, and when everyone was going to sleep, he would go like he was jerking off, like, oh yeah, in the corner of the room. He's a fucking funny dude. And he is the one who traveled with T to Midwest. So there's one picture there. Another candid shot of T on the outside. I'm not sure where they are. This does not look like the parking lot of Nickel City, which is the arcade where the event took place. So I'm not sure where this is. Let's see what else we've got here. This is funny because the guy who gave me these pictures goes, I have no recollection who the person on the left is. He hands me the picture and he goes, I don't have a fucking clue who that guy is, man. Like, he wanted to take a picture with T. I don't know who that is. So, I have no idea who this guy is. I don't even know if he still plays Street Fighter. Who knows? But there you go. Now, this is a cool shot. I'm going to give a few seconds here, and I'm going to ask anyone in the stream chat right now, do you recognize who that person to the left of T is? I will give you a cookie if you could tell me the name of the person standing to the left of T, because he is extremely well known in the Street Fighter community. Extremely well known. Let's see if anyone can guess. No one so far is... Oh, they got it. They got it. Ponder, a.k.a. one of the Cannon brothers, a.k.a. one of the co-owners of Shoryuken.com and one of the co-runners of EVO. So there you have it. I mean, if that's not evidence that you know, those guys were around back then and they were, you know, before there was an SRK. This was before there was an SRK.com. This was before there was an EVO. They were traveling the country playing Street Fighter. It was a grassroots movement. So that's a pretty cool showing of kind of a semi-empty arcade. Now, the reason that this arcade is so empty is because they were actually allowed in early because they were helping to set up. Because Scott was friends with Jason Wilson. You were allowed to go in early as long as you helped set up the tournament. And that's why the arcade is fairly empty. These players are probably testing the controls. And someone says, is that guy in the background picking his nose? Do not look. I don't know. Oh, God, I clicked the wrong one. Okay. So this is a shot of probably what the arcade looked like a little bit more when it was more crowded. Keep in mind, back then, it's not like today where you go to a tournament and there's a giant projection screen and you could watch the stream on your phone. It wasn't like that at all. You had to jump, crawl over people, look over people's shoulders, stand on chairs to see this little arcade monitor to see what was going on in a game. So it was extremely crowded in these arcades. It was such a different time. And, how things have changed. So, all right. What else do we got? See, I like this shot because this basically gives you an idea of what it was like to play on arcade cabinets. You'd be standing directly next to your opponent. A lot of the times it was a cramped area. Sometimes you'd have a chair, sometimes you wouldn't. As you can see, there's actually a stool behind one of the players here who probably thought some players were comfortable sitting in the chairs, others weren't, depending on your height. And I guess these guys are opting to stand up, and you'd basically all stand in a row alongside each other playing. You'd be shoulder to shoulder. And then, like I said, a lot of the times when the arcade got more crowded, you'd have people looking around the sides, looking over your shoulder, trying to see what was going on in the match. Okay. This is a cool one because this is Chicago O'Hare Airport. Apparently, when they went to meet up with T when he flew in, they went and picked him up from the airport, and this is him walking in at the airport, which is pretty neat. So O'Hare Airport 15 years ago, before the day of the full body cavity search and the extremely intrusive radioactive scanning, before 9/11, when you could actually walk through the airport and not have to fear for your life. Here's another shot. Heated competition. The players all lined up playing each other. Actually, give me a second. I'm going to walk up to my PC and see if I recognize any of these players. I recognize... Let's see. Well, unfortunately, I do recognize one of the players, but he's a scumbag and he was a thief. One of the players here is a notorious thief who used to go to tournaments and steal people's shit, and people didn't know it until about 2004 when he was permanently banned from every tournament ever. So I'm not going to name him because he does not deserve it. Okay, then. Continue on. By the way, he was later arrested for credit card fraud. Here we've got T playing Street Fighter 3. This is the larger style cabinet. It's not like the standard stand-up cabinets that you saw earlier. This was they called this the marquee because it was kind of like, a cabinet that was more prominently displayed. It was easier for more people to watch. This was the kind of cabinet you would want to hold your tournament finals on because it's a bigger screen and more people can see the action. Okay? All right. Only a couple more left here. So this is a cool group shot. Hold on, let me see if I can tell you who these people are, because I do recognize a few of them. All right, so first of all, obviously you guys see T. To the right of T, that person sitting next to him, the white guy with the white baseball cap, his name is Bill Gold. He is a Honda player in Super Street Fighter 2 Turbo. He has always been a Honda player, and he always will be a Honda player. He's played the game adamantly since the day it was released. He still plays it to this day. He still travels to tournaments such as all the ones in Philly. I forget what the Winter Brawl and the NEC. He still travels to those tournaments and still regularly enters them. Let's see here. If you go 3 spots to the right, 1, 2, 3, the guy on the furthest right, that's Jason Wilson from 1998. And if you know Jason Wilson from today, he pretty much looks the same, except that he looks a lot younger there. He looks like a kid, now he looks like a man, but he has the same hairdo and everything today that he has. And of course, that's Scott up behind Jason Wilson, posing. And then the final picture is kind of neat too. Hold on. This is awesome, because here you're going to see a cacophony of players who showed up for Midwest Championships, including, if you actually take a look, hold on a second, I got to find them here. All right, so if you see where T is, you see that guy that's standing in front of T, who's kind of blocking T's face? If you look a little close at the guy's face, he's kind of giving like a snooty look. You know what I mean? Like it's kind of like, he kind of has an air of arrogance around him. That's David Serlin. No surprise he looks like that. He looks like that in every photo he's ever been taken in, because that's his personality. Yes, David Serlin is in this goddamn picture. Okay. Also, we've got, obviously you see Scott standing next to T. I believe right down there in the front, is that Ponder? Or is that his brother? I think down in the front might actually be Ponder's brother, who's his twin brother. Because I think they were wearing different clothing. And I think that Ponder was wearing glasses at the time. So I think that may be his twin brother. I'm not positive, though. Don't get me wrong on that. So it's one of the cannons up front there. Not sure who. People are saying you don't know who David Serlin is. Well, you guys must not have been longtime viewers of mine, because we used to talk about him quite a lot. He was the person responsible for Super Street Fighter 2 Turbo HD Remix. And, basically the person who single-handedly killed console Super Street Fighter 2 Turbo with the changes that he put into the game. Let me see if there's anyone else. I don't know. People are making fun of some guy for having a long neck. You guys are messed up, man. Oh, and there's Bill Gold. Obviously, all the way on the right. Like one or two to the left there, there's Bill Gold. And it's hard to recognize. I mean, keep in mind, these photos are incredibly blurry. This is old, film camera pictures, not digital camera pictures you could zoom in and clean up or anything. So that's about it. All right, so that is it for the pictures. And what I would like to do is I'm going to upload those at some point this week. I got to figure out what's the best place. Because you know what happens if you upload them to a certain place and you tag them, then they can go on Google Images, and anyone who searches. Like, I want people who search for T or Telrance Carter to be able to bring up those pictures of him. You know what I mean? And I don't know how to do that. So I'm hoping that people can give me some suggestions. Where should I upload those pictures so that when people search for him, they will pop up on Google Images? Maybe it's Facebook and I need to tag them. I don't know. Let me know. I don't know. I don't use all this social media shit. I don't understand it too much. I need to figure out how to use it. So, so that's that. That's the story. And, again, the person who really inspired me to have a competitive nature, the person who said, stop just playing the local competition. There's a bigger picture. That's what you should strive to be. The competition is fun. Again, like the competitive fighting spirit, like Ryu and Ken. where you always want to be one step better. You want to take on the next challenger. You don't want to be stagnant and only just sit there and do the same thing over and over and over. And T is the person who inspired me to push myself in life, really, in a lot of things, you know? And, you know, I never forgot him. And it's, you know, God rest his soul. I love you, T. You know, it's been 15 years. And I never would have told you back then that my life would have been where I am now. I would have no fucking foresight whatsoever that I would have told you in 15 years' time, I'm going to make a living playing video games, right? I'm going to enjoy what I'm doing. I will have traveled the country. I will have gotten, fourth place at Evo, nationals with only 3 Japanese above me. So technically I was the best US player that year. I could have never fucking seen any of that stuff back then, because back then it was just small picture, and T was the person who pushed me to see the big picture and to strive for the big picture. And in a lot of ways, he's the person who I hold responsible for me being successful in a lot of things, instead of just being complacent and being happy to just sit here and do the status quo. He was the guy who made me see that there's more than that, and that you can strive to live your life in a way outside of just the normal status quo. Not that there's anything wrong with the status quo, but wow, what a ride it's been, right? So at this point, you know, this chapter of my life, I finally feel happy that I was able to, talk about it and get it off my chest, because I've held this in for so long and I really haven't talked about it. And thank you. Thank you for listening, and thank you for letting me do it. I'm moving on with my life to bigger and better things. I'm moving out of Connecticut shortly to the Seattle area of Washington. And I know I'm choking up a little bit here, but I'm moving out of Connecticut, and it's time. This is the time to be reminiscing on things like this, and I'm so glad that you guys gave me the opportunity to share that story with you. All right. Whew. It's like a weight. It's a weight off my shoulders. It really is. All right. So as I tear up like a little baby, thank you for watching Hate Live, everyone. There's obviously no time for callers this week. I apologize. Maybe next week we'll be more back on track with the normal stuff when I'm not here blubbering like a little wimp, and we'll do it then. But save your questions. Next week we'll have callers. Thanks for putting up with me for 2 hours, and that is it. Have a good night, everyone, whether you're watching on Twitch or on YouTube. Thank you very much. Peace out. Have a good night. I'll see you for gameplay tomorrow. But for now, thanks a lot for that, and I'll see you later.
So back in the day, I used to go to a local arcade, and there was a lot of people there who were my regular friends and rivals and stuff. But there was a kid there whose name is T. Carter, and he was always better than me. Okay, we were close in skill level, but he was always just an edge above. As he started to get older, he started to travel and go to tournaments, while I never aspired to do anything like that. I didn't even really know about the tournament scene. I only knew about playing locally at my local arcade. So he started traveling with other people, notably someone else whose name was Scott, who was much older than us. We were young teenagers, but he was like almost, in his 20s, early 30s, but he was heavily into competitive Street Fighter. He knew the top.
Keep in mind, DSP was literally in his early 20s when this was going on, by the way.
Players. He would travel and go to these tournaments, and,
like T was still in his teens. DSP was if he wasn't like 19 at this point, he was already he was 20, 21. He was already in his early 20s at this point. Which is another weird ass thing he does with the skinwalking thing, where he tries to keep him and T's ages really close. And I don't believe it was as close as he makes it sound. I could be wrong, but pretty confident they weren't that close in age. T was actually was like the youngest person in their crew.
Kind of share hotel rooms, and we would play Super Turbo, and everyone knew him. So he got T into going to tournaments. And then later on, T was trying to convince me to go to tournaments. He was like, dude, you've totally got to go, because it's fun and you meet all these people from all over the country or whatever. So finally, in the late 90s, I kind of made the decision that I was going to probably start going to tournaments. And then T. Carter lost his life. And it was really traumatic to everyone in the community in Connecticut. He was murdered. And eventually I kind of said, I want to see what it was that he had been talking about for so long. I never really had any aspirations to be a good tournament player, but he had just, you could see when he talked about being in a tournament, the passion in his eyes.
So why didn't you actually go to tournaments when he was asking you to? Why'd you have to wait until he was dead? Like, you know what I'm saying? So, and with that being said, he may have not, DSP may have not hit the tournament scene until he was in his 20s. So that's really what I'm actually gravitating towards. Because like I said, T was pretty young when you know what I'm saying, they shot him down. So, but it is what it is. But yet again, it goes back to, did DSP have relief or did he have regret? Because it's interesting how you don't want to hit the tournament scene until that kid's dead. And then you try to skin walk as him and get all the admiration and shit and the respectability of that Connecticut crew now that T's gone. It's really weird how he did that and whatnot. And I find something incredibly disingenuous about it. If malicious, to be honest.
How he was like a spark lit in him. And it was more than just playing the games at a local arcade, but instead like made him feel like it was some meaning to all the work that we had put into learning these games. And
it wasn't just that, though. It was the social aspect. And DSP tried to harp on that in the beginning, but he quickly gets rid of that and basically tries to turn it into clout. Something about.
And so because of that, I decided to start traveling. And when I did, I totally understood. I was like, wow, meeting people from all over the planet, quite frankly. All
given just another way for him to expand his racism. Ironically enough, though, it's hard to find this clip, and I'm thinking because that pre-stream is dead now and whatnot, or it was maybe during one of those early Friday night fighting game things. But someone called him out on his racism or whatever, and he turned it around and said, "Oh, well, it was really the FGC that kind of, you know, really embellished upon it. I heard people say a lot of stuff, and you know, everybody's, you know, would laugh at it or whatever, so I thought it was okay." So he literally tried to basically use the FGC as window dressing for his racism. It was their fault that he said the insensitive shit or racist shit that he said. It wasn't his fault directly. It was what he learned from the FGC, which was wild that he thought that was going to get over. And it didn't, obviously, but still, it was crazy that he thought he could say that shit and get away with it.
walks of life, different cultures, different backgrounds.
But then again, keep in mind, though, too, this is the same guy who allegedly knew that one of his friends was being molested by Mr. Wiz and said nothing about it until Mr. Wiz got outed years and years and years later. And then he wanted to speak up. Then he wanted to use his voice and his platform to talk about the injustices and everything that was going on. But that's funny. I thought DSP was the one who was hated by the FGC because he was so quick to call out all the injustices and bullshit that was going on in there. So you would be quick to go ahead and call people out for allegedly rigging a tournament, but your friend was getting molested and you had nothing to say about it? Absolute cinema, I guess. I guess, and whatever. So keep that in mind.
But we all have a commonality of a desire to play this game competitively and to learn different strategies and to share in each other's life experiences. It was really cool. At the end of the day, win, lose, or draw, to shake your opponent's hand and say, good game. Pretty interesting stuff. I'll just say that.
Well, that just shows kind of how socially awkward he is. Like he doesn't even look at it as camaraderie. He makes it sound like it was transactional. I want you to take that in. He's describing this as a transactional situation. Oh, I'm going out there, I'm doing all this, and look at all the things that I'm absorbing and all the things that I'm getting out of this. That's where the value comes in. So he was never trying to contribute to a community. He was never trying to see the community get better and grow with it. It was, what could the community do for me, and how can I get praised and recognized in that community, whether by hook or by crook. Yet again, real weird. He had to wait until T was dead and in the ground and whatnot to finally go out and do some shit. Speaking of which, DSP never went to T's grave. He never went to his funeral. Never did any of that shit. He was too scared to even go to him to his funeral or to his gravestone after he left Connecticut, which you would think something like that would be on your bucket list, but he a coward, so he wouldn't go. Which is weird because you could just ask Panda to go and whatnot, even though we know what Panda thinks about dark-skinned folk. But still, if you needed comfort. But I thought you loved T so much, though. Guess you can only love somebody as much as they can do something for you. Sounds like the Phil Burnell way.
So, honestly, that's what got me into it. It wasn't like I had heard about top players and I wanted to be like them, or I aspired to be a tournament winner and it was going to change my life. It was actually just my friend. at the local arcade who told me about it, and I said, I want to check it out for myself because of the word of mouth. And when he passed away, it kind of inspired me to go that extra step and go actually start checking out tournaments to see what it was all about. How do I think RGG should handle Kiryu after the ending of Infinite Wealth? I don't know, because they really retconned the whole spin-off game. I mean, literally, Infinite Wealth completely undoes the entire plot of Yakuza, the man with no name, or whatever it's called, as if the game definitely didn't matter at all, right? So I don't know what they're going to do, actually. I really have no clue.
You know, I just thought about that. I haven't gone over that. What was, I can't remember what Yakuza game that was, where he ain't sat there, went on that monster ass rant about how, you know what I'm saying, they took aspects of his life and whatnot and put it into the game, and that's why he can relate to it, and he got mocked for it, he got mad about that shit. I never went over that. I need to do it. I need to. I've seen, obviously, that madness in a SnortBucks video and a Memology video. Big ups to them. But I don't think I've ever actually done a video on that. I'll have to go back and get it. But, holy shit. Fucking mental head case. That was despicable. That's despicable that he felt the need to fucking try to relate a fucking game to his life. That was some sick shit. Holy crap. Tell me how you have little to nothing going on in your life without telling me you have little to nothing going on in your life. Holy shit, Phil.
I feel like they can't kill Kiryu. Kiryu is like their biggest guy. Yes, they now have Ichiban, but I feel like Kiryu still is their top guy. And now they kind of have two. And now that the whole Lost Judgment thing is happening, and it looks like Judgment may not continue as a series, they're kind of back to the drawing board with only one franchise again. I think that he's going to be around for a long time, even though it looked like that was going to be the end of him. I think they're going to basically retcon the whole thing. Yeah, they are. That's correct, Dark Maggot. They're starting a new IP that's going to be in a different era, right? It's the past. It's supposed to be like more medieval Japan. And it looks like it could be interesting because it's not the same characters and everything, right?
You know, for someone who supposedly loves that series so damn much, he really don't know a whole lot about it, which is weird. You would think someone who literally just plays video games poorly all day would know a little bit more about it.
All right, guys, last 10 minutes. So last chance to tag me in the chat if you have some questions. And last chance if you want to support and have us hit this goal tonight and get to 43 and be on our way towards our goal of this marathon of Five Nights at Freddy's. It would be great if we hit it tonight. It's not the end of the world if we don't. But, man, we already got this far with only around 50 to go. It would make sense to hit it. So if anyone was holding off or waiting, now would be the time to contribute. And thank you to everyone who has already.
Holding off or waiting. Like I said, where's the urgency at with any of this shit? And I think, honestly, it just comes down to hit whatever the 10 milestone is or whatever, and then immediately start him on the next one. And he feels that if there's too much time that passes, it'll diminish their motivation to keep doing it, and that's why he keeps pressing them and whatnot. So going back to the whole situation with the streak, he didn't want to continue that bullshit because the detractors, trolls, haters, and critics can mock him over that bullshit, right? Obviously. By breaking it down into just these little milestones or whatever, he can sit there and say, oh, it's no big deal if we don't hit it, yada, 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 to keep, the detractors starving, basically. While at the same time doubling up or ranting or revving up, I should say, or doubling down on the urgency with people hitting the goal. Just, it doesn't sound like, oh, we got to keep the streak going, It's like, no, guys, we got to keep the motivation going. Let's hit the 10, let's hit the DSP Cries It, this, that, and the third. So basically, by breaking it down into these smaller parts and letting them know that, hey, for your $1,500, you're going to get a DSP Tries It, you're going to get a DSP Tries It, you're going to get it soon, yada, yada, yada. It's like telling a kid, hey, it's like if you take your kid to McDonald's or something every Friday or whatever. As long as they're good, you're good Monday through Friday. On Friday, I'll take you there, or I'll take you to get ice cream on Saturday or whatever. He treats them like that because that's exactly how he formats it. And the reason why is that's DSP's mindset. He's very goal oriented. If you really want to make him do something and actually do it with some purpose, I guess is probably the word I'm using, there has to be a goal for him at the end of it. You know what I mean? Even though he's the one who benefits. He's getting the $1,500. He's going to have the DSP Tries It in the end of it. There is no payoff for them. And the fact that none of those idiots over there can see that shit is crazy to me. And so this idea or this theory that there are dent tractors out there contributing to that shit, what are y'all getting out of it? Yeah, like, honest question. Like, what is the motivation that you guys are getting out of it? DSP is going to produce milk no matter what. So helping him, giving DSP money to hit a goal does what exactly? I don't know. That's just me.
Can I name the 5 power rings from Captain Planet? Earth, Fire, Wind, Water, and Heart. And that was Mati. No, it was Kwame. Let me see. Earth was Kwame. Fire was Wheeler. Wind was, dang, I forgot her name. The Russian girl. Water was the Asian girl. And Heart was Mati. I forgot their girls' names for some reason.
Okay, so you're in the men. It's almost confirmed, Phil. You're almost out of that closet, Phil. Trust me. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, no one's gonna stop detracting because you came out as gay. that's not gonna be a thing, Phil. But you know, you gotta stay in the closet as long as you need to, bro. You're gonna have to pop out eventually. Oh man, funny stuff. Good shit on Diggs for that. I didn't really know where we were going with that, but I'm kind of glad he left it in there. That's pretty hilarious. Okay, so how are we going to end this one off? All right. Big ups to Raw Phil and big ups to Diggs and whatnot. As soon as Diggs gives me that insert for the lower third, I will patch you in. You know what I'm saying? So make that happen. Any case, all right, ladies and gentlemen, final thoughts, and then I will let you guys go. Yeah, I guess realistically, ladies and gentlemen, we go back to what are your thoughts as it pertains to does DSP feel relief that T passed away so he could get his time in the sun, basically? Or does he feel regret that T didn't live long enough for him to be able to suckle everything that he could out of T before he passed away so he could be the man? I guess that's my question to you. I guess that is my final thoughts. I'm actually kind of glad I remember that towards the end. And like I said, I get that sounds like an incredibly insensitive or brutal thing to say. And yet at the same time, not to say that I can justify that, but I will say that I'm not going to use kid gloves with DSP. He's not worthy of it. Would he do it to somebody else if he was in my position criticizing another content creator? No, he wouldn't. He would go, well, if it's another man, DSP would more than likely go balls deep. So with that being said, I mean, I don't see a reason to give him any quarter. I don't see any reason to give him any mercy. And DSP doesn't value people. He never did. So with that being said, I don't have to, but I choose to look at him from that point of view. DSP doesn't value life. He barely values his own, but he damn sure don't value other people. And I think his whole situation with T is he responds in set way that he believes people should expect him to. But I honestly don't think him and T's relationship was even that deep, to be honest. I don't think it was a thing. And how is it that you love this man so much and you couldn't go to that cat's funeral? You couldn't go to his grave or whatever. You couldn't do any of that. You were too lazy, too stupid, or too much of a coward to show any type of respect to him whatsoever. But he says he loves T so damn much. You know what I'm saying? He says they were good friends, they were rivals, this, that, and the third, even though DSP was on the other end of the punching bag. Last time I checked, when you go into the gym and you hit the speed bag or you hit the heavy bag, is that a rival? Is that your rival and shit? No, it's a combo dummy type situation, and that's what DSP is. DSP was a combo dummy for Taquito. He was a combo dummy for most of the guys in the FGC, to be honest with you. You know what I'm saying? He was a combo dummy for T. You know what I'm saying? Just because you're taking hits, don't make... That's not a rivalry. I never understood why he says that shit, but whatever. Anywho, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for listening in. I very much appreciate it. I'll catch you guys for the next one of these, whenever that may be, hopefully sooner than later. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been the Snort Report. This has been DSP News. Always late, never breaking. Unreliable coverage that you can't count on. Oh, yes! The GTG Network and Productions. For the Snort Report, as well as SnortBucks Coffee Company and all of our subsidiaries and affiliates, I've been your host / anchor GTG, and I'm signing off. Holy shit. Woo! I'm anxious to see what you guys think about that relief or regret thing. Holy shit. I'm anxious to see what you guys think and what you guys come up with. Anywho, that's if you feel inclined to. You don't owe me anything. Take care of yourselves, people. Later.